العبيدلي. Okay, good morning. Hope you can all hear me well. Just give me a wave if you're. My name is Nada El Sawi. I'm a Cairo correspondent with the national newspaper, which is based in the UAE. I have with me today for our briefing Water Security in a Changing Climate. First, we have Mr. Abdelaziz Al Ubaidli, Director of UAE Asset Management at TAQA. Mr. Jose Diaz Caneja, CEO of the water business of Acciona, which is based in Spain, and Mr. Arif Al Kareli, General Advisor for Water Resources Management at the Ministry of Environment and Water and Agriculture in Saudi Arabia, and a senior consultant to the UNDP, United Nations Development Program. So this is a very good spread because, of course, in the Middle East, as we all know, there's a major problem of water security because we live in the desert and there are no sources of rivers, but we have seawater. So, of course, desalination is a necessary way of getting fresh water. At the same time, the challenges are that it takes a lot of energy, which of course causes carbon emissions, and the effect of water, the whole process on the environment, the seawater, in terms of what is produced in that process. So first of all, I would like to just, if you could each briefly, very briefly, just explain what your role is, and then we'll go into some questions. So I will just start with Mr. Al-Ubaidi.
Shukran, Nada, and I'm very glad to be here, speaking about very important topic, to be honest, which is the water, because very often when we speak about climate change, when we speak about decarbonization, a lot of focus is usually on the power side, on the renewable side, on the fossil fuel side. But as you've highlighted, we are in a region where water is a scarce resource, and it's very important to address the water issue, right? Without water, I mean, you can live with power, and generations and nations lived for ages without power, but we never have seen in the history that people and humankind could live without water. In my role as the director of UAE Asset Management, I look at TAQA's fleet of water desalination assets in the UAE. We're speaking about a capacity around 900 million imperial gallon produced every day, and more to come as we are building one of the largest reverse osmosis standalone water plant in the world, which hopefully very soon will start its commercial operation as we are now ramping up the capacity of production, doing all the tests and so on. And a part of my role, we are looking into how can we make our desalination assets more efficient. How can we contribute to the UAE and the global efforts to reduce emissions by integrating, for example, renewables as part of the desalination systems, by as well decoupling our power productions from our water production from the power facilities, and I'm sure we are going to discuss that a lot today, as well as tracking the technology, see how the technology can help us. And we have esteemed colleagues here from Axion. I'm sure he will touch base on the technology, but the technology today has proven as well that it could help not only reducing the cost, but reducing the energy intensity of one of the largest or the most intensive energy consumption processes, which is water desalination.
Great.
Say?
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I'm very, very glad, very happy to be here, having the opportunity of discuss the topic. This is one of our preferred topics, as you can imagine, and even more if we are doing representatives of the main stakeholders in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which are two of the largest users of desalinated water worldwide. I would like just to do a very quick statement that I think that gives a clear view about the evolution of the technology and the desalination itself in terms of environmentally friendly approach. So if we are talking not very far away, just talking, let's think about 2005. Broadly, the large scale desalination plants operating in the GCC countries, which were the largest in the world, were mainly based in thermal technologies, MSF, MED with vapor compression, whatever. And consumption of those plants based on that technology has been reduced almost by 50% in terms of emissions. Let's talk about emissions. Energy emissions, 50% with the implementation of the reverse osmosis technology. Okay? Then, over this 15 years period, the reverse osmosis technology, let's say that has improved its efficiency in another 10%. And then, over the last 5 years, we have seen the real coupling of renewable energies to desalination production, which is not being total because it is mainly linked to solar PV, so at night it's not working, and storage is not still sufficiently efficient and developed. But let's say again that it could be probably 40% of the energy consumption in large scale plants. So if you add this reduction of 50%, 10%, and another 40% for the renewables, we are talking about that. A plant that consumed 100, or the emissions were 100 in 2005, is nowadays 25. So this reduction, 75%, in such a short time span of 15 years, is significantly dramatic in a positive way. I think that we all have been, and that I'm saying it in a positive way, no? Conscious and talking and promoting the climate conservation for much more than these 15 years. But in this particular technology, and at the end of the day, we are talking about having or not having water, we have reduced 75% the emissions in something that gives water, life, feasibility of projects, of life, of cities, to a region in the world that, if not, would be real in trouble for that. So I think we need to look at this from a very positive perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like first to thank TAQA and the UAE for inviting me to speak in this forum. And also, I would like to thank actually the Egyptian presidency for bringing the water issue in different panels and formats. I'm Arif Al-Kalali from Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture in Saudi Arabia. And the ministry actually works hand in hand with the SWCC, which is Saltwater Conversion Corporation. And we meet at a point where we strategize the projects, whether in its current state or in the future, depending on the Saudi Kingdom of Saudi Arabia plans and the population growth, but again aligning with the climate change initiatives. And we actually approach this from a very strategic point of view. In 2016, we worked on a national water strategy. And this national water strategy, which is available online, has based its approach on what we call integrated water resources management. And basically, from the name, at its highest definition, it looks at the national goals, and from the national goals we assess what we have basically, and we assess the gaps and work on filling these goals. And it is a cyclical process that goes on and on all the time. So when a new issue comes, we change this strategy according to the need. One of the strategy's objectives is a plan with KPIs to monitor the change of energy and the use of energy from clean sources, from fuel sources and gas sources to clean energy, that is solar power. We already have converted a portion of a plant in Khafji area. Portion of it is working on solar energy, and we are planning to increase that approach. It is important, and from my point of view as an applier of the integrated water resources management, that if you look at the heat map of the energy consumption of water production, you will see, as my colleague here said, that the desalination consumes a lot of energy compared to other resources. So it is essential, and that's what we do in the kingdom, to assess your resources and design your supply mix at the point of use based on the minimum amount of carbon that you produce. But it is also equal to the cost, because the cost of transportation, especially in the kingdom with big spans of land, the cost is a key factor in determining which supply source you are tackling. So my job has been actually a full spectrum of integrated water resources management, from setting policies and enforcing them, to assessing the secondary water and primary water resources, including also the planning for the future supply for the kingdom based on population growth and the projects that are available, and the projects that actually get invented through the years. But we have developed a resilient and coherent water management system with all the sectors coming under one umbrella, which is the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, and that made our lives very easy in responding and being resilient to any change that may face us. Thank you.
Thank you, great. Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges that you've mentioned. So first, the cost, second, using renewable energy, and third, disposing of the toxic brine. If you could talk about cost, how expensive is it? I mean, how does it compare to other methods? And do your countries, or do people have that finance? And second, renewable energy, how easy is it to use solar energy or other types of renewable energy, and the disposal of brine. What can be done with this? Can it be used in other as salt? Can it be disposed in other ways? So if we can talk about those three challenges just in the same order.
Sure. Thank you again, Nada. I think when we speak about cost, the similar to what have happened in other technologies, such as the solar PV, we've seen a significant reduction in the cost of solar desalination, driven by advancement in technologies, especially the membrane-based technologies such as RO. But for that specific region, or for our region, the GCC countries, I think the key contributor for reducing the cost will be in the what we call it the decoupling. And I would like to spend a few minutes in explaining what is decoupling, because it's not a phenomena you would, for example, hear in other markets. Historically, the water production in countries like the UAE and other GCC countries was coupled with the power production. And that's mainly to utilize the excess heat energy available from the thermal-driven power technologies and produce water. In fact, we've seen also some water plants were built, and the power was, for example, secondary product through, for example, steam turbines and so on. And that's while it has served the nations in securing the water needs for ages, and while for some time it was one of the key and it was very efficient as well way of producing, I would say, water. While the population is increasing and while modernization is also playing a bigger part, we start to see a difference in demand between power and water, especially in the winter and the summer, in a way that, driven by the intensive use of air conditioning and so on, the summer demand is more than double the winter demand. And what happens is that in the winter, you are still forced to run your power plant and consume a lot of fuel, increase the system cost, not because you need that power, just because you are interested in the downstream product, which is the water. And we do believe now, and we started this journey already in TAQA by investing in the first standalone decoupled reverse osmosis water plant, the Tawila reverse osmosis water plant, that now there is a time for changing and there is a time to decouple the water production from water, because that, first of all, will significantly reduce the system cost. And I think this is a fundamental need if we would like to encourage further investment in the water desalination. And then also, it help in reducing the carbon emissions significantly, because you don't need to run your power plants when you don't need them, and you will only again run them during the summer demands or the peak demands and so on. So that's how we see the cost is evolving, and of course using other technologies like digitalization, artificial intelligence, synergizing between different assets in the fleet. All of this will contribute to reducing the cost, which at the end will benefit the end user.
Okay, and what about the disposal?
So the disposal of the brine, I mean, first of all, I think we need to understand that, yes, desalination will have a product which is heavy I mean, a brine heavy has high concentration of salt and so on. But you are speaking about a drop in an ocean, right? Other industries are contributing, for example, to or negatively impacting the oceans much more than desalination. And I really would like people to understand that. And this brine is regulated by a lot of laws and regulations in the regions we are operating on. So we can't just, for example, drop any product in the sea. It has to have a specific level of salinity, a specific level of minerals, specific temperatures, and we go through some processes. So once you produce the water, you don't just dump the brine, you go through specific process to ensure that that brine which will be dumped back in the oceans will not harm the marine life there, will not interrupt, for example, the flow circulation and the regular, for example, journeys of whatever creations we have in the sea. And very recently as well, we started engaging with research institutions in the UAE, such as New York University, Khalifa University, and the like, to reassess as well our a brine dumping process. How can we make it even more efficient, even more environmental friendly? We also start speaking to different startups who are potentially trying to extract some minerals from the brine, such as bromide and so on, and access untapped additional value from this process, which will, of course, for us means as well, in addition to protecting the environment, additional profitability, which will encourage us to invest further in such environmental friendly solutions.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Now, these are three topics that are always, two of them specifically are always very trendy ones. No? So related to cost, firstly, up to last year, we have been seeing a reduction, a very relevant reduction, specifically over the last 5 years again, on the cost of desalinated water. And the benchmark 1 year ago was in the range of 40 cents in larger scale plants, very big plants under BOT schemes, the ones that have been developed by SWPC in Saudi Arabia, by EWEC and TAQA, of course, in the UAE. But the benchmark is in that range. Okay, 40 cents. Let's talk about round figures. 40 cents per 1,000 liters. Let's also put in context the thing. And I was saying that yesterday, that probably all of you have been paying a bottle of water of 1 liter for more than $1. And we are talking here about 1,000 times more for less than half. So you pay in the shop more than $1, €1 for a liter, and we are talking about paying 40 cents per 1,000 liters. So let's put that in the context. And I want to grab that and in the mind of everybody that wants to enter in this discussion. That means that, at least under my understanding, for municipal human consumption, there are always cases and regions and populations that should need to be subsidized and support. But let's talk generally. Human consumption or industrial consumption, I would say that desalination costs are purely affordable. And I will talk now which is the benchmark today, which rised a little bit from these 40 cents. The problem is agriculture. We are working with some projects in the reuse for Medina, Taif, Buraida, in the reuse of wastewater, which is a totally different thing in terms of cost. But again, depending on which type of crops you are growing, 40 cents could be a solution. Some others could not. I mean, I live in Madrid. I live in Spain. In the Mediterranean Rim, we have, let's say, intensive agriculture regions that grows peppers and avocados, and it's perfectly feasible doing with desalinated water. Wheat and others are not, of course. So you need, again, to know what you are using the water for, but definitely in the range of prices that we are already today, it could be perfectly feasible for many of the activities that we are willing to use it for. The thing is that over the last year, with all this complex situation that we have suffered, the escalation in every sector, specifically in commodities, of course, the energy, after that of this horrible thing in the Ukrainian war and all that, with all that put again in the pot, is giving us that the benchmark today in the last projects that we are seeing, that we are bidding, it could be in the range of 60 cents. Okay, so it has jumped from 40 to 60, slightly below 60, let's say. But let's
That's in the last year or?
yeah, in 1 year,
One
year,
Okay.
because we were squeezing the thing until the limit, and now with all this booming of escalation, financing costs that are also rising drastically. So unfortunately, is what it is, driven up to 60 cents. Even with that, 60 cents of dollar per 1,000 liters. So again, of course, the bar for where you can use diesel or not has moved upwards. But again, this is only for agriculture, industrial, human consumption, municipal consumption. I'd say it's perfectly feasible. Going to renewable energy, I think that the sector has progressed a lot on that. Next step would be coupling PV with probably wind power in places in which wind power is operational at night. And this is a global thing. It happens in Brazil, not in Spain. Not sure in the Middle East, but I don't think so. So probably the next thing would be batteries. And here, let me make the joke. If Mr. Musk is not very busy with Twitter, probably in 5, 10 years' time, we will have batteries that will solve the storage problem of energy. And then the last topic, and I will be short on that. I do not agree with the adjective that you put to brine of toxic.
Okay.
Okay, 90% of the water in the world is salty water. More than 90%, I think it's 97. Salty water. And you could even consider that normal water in the Gulf could be brine compared to the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic is 36, 35, 37 grams per liter. In some places in the Gulf, Al-Khobar, for instance, could reach to 57. So, and we are talking that brine in the Mediterranean Sea is 60. In Jubail could be 78, 75. So it's not that it's toxic.
In where, sorry?
In Jubail, in Saudi Arabia,
Okay.
in the Gulf.
Yeah.
It's not that it's toxic.
Yeah.
It is that has more salt. And no, I'm talking seriously. For example, we have a project in Adelaide in Australia that is not a country or a region that has the reputation of being loosey on environmental terms. And we have monitored the outfall with submarine videos, with you name it, all the analysis we could have done there in order to assess the effects on the animals, on vegetables, and we are seeing that if the system is well designed, just 1 meter out of the exit of the outfall, there is no affection to life at all. There is affection if we talk about specific species, for example, in vegetables or in the seagrass, in Posidonia oceanica. But the thing is that these are some grass extensions with a determined width, and you need to pour the water, the brine water, outside of this sensitive zone. But nowadays the technology allows perfectly to do that, and dilution is perfectly adequate, and there is no real effects. There's mentally could be very appealing to trying to think that this is toxic, but I totally defend that this is not a right assessment on that.
Great. Okay. And is it possible to use this brine for other products?
As my colleague said, now there is a lot of investigation, research and development on brine mining for magnesium, calcium, even lithium because of the price of the lithium and the use in semiconductors and these things. It's a technology and a sector that is growing now. My personal opinion is that there is still a need for walking the way. Saline Water Conversion Corporation having 10 million cubic meters per day of brine in their different plants is very keen on researching on what could be abstracted for that. Definitely something could be done, but up to my knowledge, and I'm not an expert in this particular topic, still the technology needs to be developed, and we will see till which end it could go.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I think it's very hard to cover anything more when my colleagues have spoken. So I would probably speak about some opportunities that are there. Decentralization of desalination is probably key to reducing also the cost, especially when it comes to the use for agriculture. This is after one fact, and it is a global fact, that aquifers, as much as they contain fresh water, they contain brackish and brine water. And I know of a US scale study by the USGS just assessing brackish and salt water in the US. Speaking of that, even in MENA region and like regions, there are aquifer systems that hold water that is not near seawater or even the water in the Gulf. So the cost that we are speaking about in the Gulf is very high, probably due to high salinity, baseline salinity to the drinking water. In the aquifers, there are salinities that are up to 12,000, 15,000, 20,000, and you don't need to do a treatment to it to the degree of the drinking water. It's for agriculture. This is one thing. The other thing is that you withdraw it from the ground. So I think biofouling is an additional cost. So when you draw the salt water and the brackish water from the ground, you are actually reducing the biofouling many folds. Yeah. So there is a potential for inland desalination from the aquifers, knowing that, and it is my background, that a lot of saline and brackish aquifers are actually flowing, so you don't need energy to extract it. So this is one thing. When it comes to the energy, in Saudi Arabia, in addition to the research and the initiatives that we are doing when it comes to solar energy, we are researching, and actually I can say that we are succeeding in geothermal energy. And this is a global phenomena, especially when the crust of the earth thins, such as in the Red Sea shore, and also inland. There are areas where actually you have a plume of deep water that is hot, that is ascending. And if you use desalination technologies at reduced pressure, you can actually have desalination process from this heat in order to produce the desalinated water inland. And of course, again, in Saudi Arabia, one of our major costs is transportation. And so if we can decentralize this for at least small and medium-sized settlement, that would be a new opportunities, plus a new opportunity to use this water instead of the fresh water, which is declining globally. And I would like to say just one additional point is that water is not becoming scarce only in the arid regions. It is becoming scarce even in wet regions due to contamination. So let's not take it for granted that a wet region has abundance of water. We have done some damage to the water resources and to the point that we can't probably use them at a reasonable cost in some region. When it comes to the disposal, I have to admit that it is still a problem, and we are long way away from solving it, but we are starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. by the zero liquid discharge technology. But I think one of the things that will really solve the problem is that if we can turn this into some kind of building material. And so because of the expansion of the projects, and I know that in the Himalayas, actually they mine the salt, but that salt has been formed naturally to the point that they make artifacts out of it and use it for building. And so that's where I say, but I think we need big brains to work for disposal and also for the membrane technology. I believe looking at some of the nanotechnology and its improvement for the service of commercial-based industries such as energy, I think by transferring the water desalination plants to the private sector and then creating the proper institutional framework for proper cost recovery, it will indirectly influence the research institutes to expedite their results to produce membranes that are the cause of less costly desalination with direct application to the industry. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I do want to leave some time for questions. I'll just have like one closing remark. And what I want you to address is, are we in an emergency? The population, we've cited population growth and water scarcity and also water supplies being damaged. Are we in emergency in the Gulf, in the Middle East?
I personally don't think we are in emergency. We've been dealing with water for decades now, but what is our focus now is to make sure that our desalination facilities are more efficient, more environmental friendly, and technology, of course, is contributing to this, but also it requires commitment. I'll just give an example to what we are doing in TAQA. We've just recently have announced our ESG strategy, and we are committed to reduce our tier 1 and tier 2 emissions by 33% globally, by 25% globally and by 33% in the UAE. And the fact, which we cannot deny, that this cannot be done without focusing on the water, right? Because this region is requiring and consuming a lot of energy for water desalination. Water is a scarce resource. This is a fact. We are all aware of it. So, and that's probably a call for like-minded utility company. You can't just focus on the power. I think there is a similar and significant focus has to be put on the water to ensure that we achieve the targets and we are in the right directions towards the carbon neutrality. So that way, what I would like to emphasize. It's not an emergency, but we have to be focused, we have to be committed, and the technology will not drive that alone. We need commitment from companies, from nations, from off-takers, and we need people to start investing more on those decoupled solutions, reverse osmosis, to drive the technology and drive the institutions who will see the potential to drive the cost even further, as well as to reduce the energy intensity of such technologies.
Okay, thank you.
Well, even if I spend...
Well, you can maybe talk from the global perspective on what you see are the challenges.
I wouldn't be brave enough to take the floor to my colleagues on,
yes.
on that.
Yes.
Well, I think it has been said, no? In dry regions, it is a problem that it is managed. Mm-hmm. It depends a lot on. I mean, I'm sure that there are regions and countries, and probably other less developed countries that could have spots of quite highly problematic situations, yeah. But broadly, as a general approach, I would say neither in dry regions or countries this is a real emergency situation, and in not dry places, contamination could be, as you have said, a real hazard, a real problem. But again, in most of places, we are dealing with that. I mean, I'm sure that some countries, large population countries, this is a problem.
Yeah.
But most important thing to me is that we have the means, we have the technology, and we are able to mitigate that. We are able to adapt us to the situation using the words that we are used to use here. Let's not wait till the situation is not recoverable. We can do it, but we need to plan it from now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to classify your emergency to colors, if you don't
Okay.
mind. So, as my colleague here said, it's not, we are not an emergency, but we are at a state near emergency had we not acted in response to this demand. And I think I would speak on Saudi Arabia. I think it has a very well put, good example for the world, whether it is in technology, research in technology, and also in integrated water resources management with its umbrella over managing the entire sector that is related to the water, and putting a plan for actually 100 years ahead in terms when it comes to supply mix to what we know now, and by putting a system that is resilient enough to accommodate even further demand, I think we are in a good shape, but still we need to be active and monitoring the situation closely with our technology, with our policies, with our decision making in order to be resilient enough to the changes that may face us in the future.
Great. Okay, let's take some questions. Just please introduce yourself, your name and your company or affiliation.
Hi everyone, thank you panelists for the interactive talk about desalination and the water scarcity. This is Sinan Rashid from Alpine Limited. We are a sustainability consultant operating in UAE, Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So I'm personally working as secondment in one of the biggest entities in Saudi Arabia, and we are running lots of giga projects, let's say. And we are facing this problem in scarcity of water, and especially on areas which is like islands in the sea, in the Red Sea or Arabian Gulf as well. So my question will tackle maybe a couple of points, which is space, energy, cost, and applicability as well. So from your experience, guys, how far the offshore desalination plants will play a role in mitigating these problems we are talking about? Thank you very much.
Offshore.
Offshore desalination plants.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anybody or?
I can start with this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, offshore building a water plant offshore is expensive, right? So if you have the ability to make it onshore, you will always choose to go for an easy solution, less expensive solution, and choose to have an onshore solution. Yet, as I've highlighted, I mean, a lot of nations, the geographical situation of their countries are islands, and Abu Dhabi is one of them, for example, in the United Arab Emirates. So what we adopted as a solution for this is distributed RO solutions in several of the islands. Of course, you can't have a cost of production competitive as a large scale of, for example, 200 or the couple of hundreds of IGD, because you will generate just couple of IGDs in this. We also have some other solutions which have been addressed from more of a security of supply. So we have barges who are, for example, equipped with desalination units, but those are not, I would say, commercially operated solutions, but solutions have been adopted for security of supply. We recently invested as well in containerized RO units, right, which are also deployable. So you can take from one place to another place. You can have them in an island. You can have them in another place. And we are assessing how can we distribute them in the country, again, to enhance security of supply should a worst-case scenario avail itself. So the technology is there, but is it the right investment if you are trying to reduce costs? I don't think so. The more you centralize, the more you go onshore, with all of onshore complication, because as well land accessibility and on the onshore is a question, and there is a lot of competitors. Every time you find a good location, you see a hotel or resort competing you on the same land, right? Yet, of course, water is important for the security of the nations, and hence usually has advantages and win the lands before such resource and so on. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to add this something to this, Jose? Yeah.
No,
or
just
Mr. Kaderi? Oh, you wanted to add something?
it's just that's mobile, containerized barges, and there is one additional solution or technology that is being developed nowadays. There is one company that is working hard on that. That is subsea, submerged desalination, and a trial pilot has been performed in Jeddah earlier this year. It will come. I think that it will come, and probably will be the next step. I mean, I do not see breaking through technologies in desalination that would change drastically in the next decade. And probably the only one that is different and that has a clear advantage in terms of energy consumption could be the subsea desalination. Having said that, it has another cons. We could talk. I could go for an hour on this. I don't want to, but capex could be higher. It will be higher. Operational cost is kind of uncertainty in case things do not go as smooth as they are planned to. But yeah, that will be the other thing that I will add to what my colleague has said about, let's say, a smaller scale mobile or barges.
Okay.
I
Would you like to
yeah,
add? Well, we'll
yes,
add one more question. So just try to keep it short if you can.
Yeah, it is short.
Yeah.
There is a new technology stemming from nanotechnology. It is called MOF, metallic organic form. And plus that if you are on an island, the saturation of humidity is very high. And so there are other methods depending on your demand on this island. If it is drinking water, I think that for small population, I think it can be sufficed by harvesting water from air using the new technologies that are available.
Okay. Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Mukul Dikshit. I come from India and I work for a company called J Oil in Singapore. From the water security point of view, I had a very small question because when I go around people talking about green hydrogen, etc., the best method being talked about is electrolysis. And they use solar energy to say that it is going to get you green hydrogen. What my worry is, and when I see a seminar like this, is who has done the water balance for the availability for so much of hydrogen requirement. And when we are struggling to even get our drinking water adequately placed, and we're talking of seawater, desalination, etc., how do I get this water good for electrolysis quality to generate hydrogen? So there are two questions to it. One, availability of water. Second, getting it to the electrolyzable quality. Where are we in this? Is there a thought that the team can throw on it? Or can we be enlightened with some ideas on that?
I can take the first part and leave the other part for you if you want. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I understand you properly. You're referring to electrolysis, but for what? We're talking about hydrogen? Are we talking about...
Using water for green hydrogen.
hydrogen,
So you're
yeah.
saying that
for green hydrogen
What I'm
production.
trying
Okay,
to
okay,
project
yeah, yeah.
is the water balance for drinking water, as well as what is happening is
Yeah.
Yeah.
we are
In-
trying to eliminate or get green hydrogen through the fossil fuel and trying to
Right.
sustain that.
Yeah.
But I'm entering into the water zone. So am I shifting the problem from fossil fuels
Right.
Yeah.
to water?
Yeah.
And if somebody has
It-
studied it, then that will be the
in the
best one to
process
think
of electrolysis, yeah.
I personally don't see a competition between
No.
water production for our day-to-day use and water production for green hydrogen. In fact, I see water desalination technologies in these regions are enabler for green hydrogen production in the future, right? Because first of all, this region, I mean the GCC region, Egypt and so on, are blessed with, I would say, good solar resources, good wind resources, which will encourage green hydrogen. But the desalination technologies is also playing a significant role because they will also provide the access to the water which we will require for your production. And I don't see competition because, in fact, that will encourage further investment in efficient desalination technologies. And in fact, it will make the question of efficiency is of more importance because one thing all the developers and the technology companies will focus on for the green hydrogen is reducing the cost. We all know now green hydrogen is part of the future. There is no denial, but the question of driving its cost, so it could be a commercially available solution without government subsidies, is the focus in the upcoming years, I would say. And that will encourage, again, the question of efficiency in desalination. How can I reduce the cost of renewables more, and how can I reduce the cost of desalination even further to result into very competitive green hydrogen prices?
I guess the question is there enough water to use it for
We have
electrolysis?
oceans, right?
No.
75% of our planet is water.
And on top of that, we are talking about different orders of magnitude. The need desalted water for producing green hydrogen has 1 zero less or 2 than what we are talking in the larger scale diesel plants that these gentlemen are promoting in their countries. So, desalted water for green hydrogen volume is really compact size plants, not really big water. So I do not see any type of risk in competition for the product, for the water itself. Not at all.
Great. Okay, I think we need to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Nada.
you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.